Alright, hello people. Here is the game 1v1 that Baker and Sean played pretty recently. Um, we're on Plunging Valley. Baker is playing his US on-spec deck, which looked like this at the time. Definitely good air power, which Baker has become pretty proficient at using. Lots of artillery in the paladins and then the attackums, but he didn't quite have enough infantry for this game, which is why there's been some adjustments made to the deck. And then Sean played his Soviet unspec deck, which has a lot of rifle infantry, and a lot of recon, mix of tanks, but I definitely think he was forgetting about some of the units he had on his deck, and his plane tab was not used. Used some of his planes weirdly. So let's get started. So this is Plunging Valley, great 1v1 and 2v2 map. So we have 3 lanes of the Foxtrot, Bravo, and then the Delta Alpha lane. The the thing with this map for Conquest in particular is that it is pretty hard to contest Delta or Alpha if it's not your like gimme zone, but it should be pretty easy to contest Bravo and Foxtrot from either side of the map. Bravo has, for the Charlie side of the map, has this town, the forest, these smaller forests, and then from the Echo side has this town, these 2 little town blocks as a further forward position, and this tree line. In between Delta and Alpha, there's this forest, which is mostly the Echo-sided favor, and then Alpha has these 2 towns and this little forest, which is pretty easy for them to control. And then in Foxtrot, you have the forest sort of in the middle, but towns on either side, which are pretty easy for the respective people to control. So, getting really the way to win this game is either buy commands to get a contest or a full cap on Bravo or Foxtrot before the enemy does, or be able to push your opponent out of Bravo or Foxtrot. Maybe if you're really good, you could get through a center attack and like neutralize Alpha or Delta, but that'd be pretty difficult. So I'm gonna speed the game up until we get through the deployment phase. So since these are the 2 heavy hitters, there's a lot of tools available in each deck. So, and they have a bit more points than usual. I think it was 1,500 starting points rather than 1,000, because they have to cover the whole map, and they have to think about the whole map. So it's pretty, it's a lot of work. Alright, so Sean has sort of what looks like 3 packs. He's got a BMD2 command for his base. He's got another BMD2 command for the center area. I think he has, he has BTR-80s, so these have motor stroke 90, along with the BMP2. He has his Spetsnaz and helicopters, and a Tunguska, so a little pack, and then a BRDM-3 for recon on its own. And this other pack is pretty similar in terms of its fighting forces, but it also has 2 Razvedka squads as well. And then Sean also started with MiG-29 bomber and both of his Su-25s, which is very excessive, particularly when you have to cover all this territory. That's like 390 points worth of airplanes, which can be powerful, particularly in the game when there's not a lot of AA or necessarily air superiority fighters to counter like ground attacks. But he probably would be better off with a like 1 Su-25 and then 260 points more ground units. Baker has a Humvee for home, a helicopter CV for Alpha, a Humvee which is heading towards Bravo. He has a DAP and a longbow. His helicopters. This pack here, he's got some Rangers in the V150, some light riflemen and a Humvee here, Chaparral, an IP Abrams, and a LAV-25. And in the middle, he's got SMAs and Humvee, Ranger, Rifleman 90 in Bradleys, and a PVADS. And then he also has a Super Cobra, and he has an M1A1 and a Patriot. So this is, I would say, the big problem with Baker. So the big problem with both players' opening moves, which we'll get going, is they are both much too cautious in their opening territory grabs. Sean sends most of his forces in Foxtrot to this town, which is correct. He has a lot of his Delta forces start out in this tree line when they really should be further forward, and then he grabs this area, which is fairly correct. He should also probably be trying to get something into this town here, because you can. In this town, particularly from the Echo side, gives great line of sight, coverage, huge interdiction. Baker's problem, and it's harder for Sean to cover all these areas because he has like 400 points of airplanes. Baker's problem, he has like 250 points tied up in expensive helicopters. He has a decent force for Alpha, but he starts out mostly deploying it in the back town, when he should really be trying to get up into this town, and this tree line. He has a good force for Bravo, but again, he's mostly trying to get into this town. We should get a little bit further forward into these tree lines. And he has nothing for Foxtrot. Like this tank and this Patriot, which I forgot to mention at the start, are covering this flank technically, but there is like no reason that this shouldn't be more ground units. Like, trade the Patriot, which is 120 points, and it is great, but for like a PVADS and 80 points worth of infantry that you can get into this town. So Baker does get up into this area, and just screening this Delta area to start with a recon unit it's not the worst thing. This recon unit is, because it's in the middle of the forest, it can't really see outside the forest, so recon units really need to be on the edge of things in order to like utilize their recon. Because the maximum this can see is like whatever my counter is circling. Additionally, this is just completely uncontested, this area, which is, I'm very happy to see Sean moving forward, landing his Spetsnaz in this town. But at this point, making sure there's nothing in this town, getting his other infantry into this town, because Spetsnaz can't deal with vehicles. Getting his Motorcycle 90 into this town. Bringing command is good for Foxtrot because there is a command vehicle in Bravo, so he doesn't want to tick. But after this command vehicle, his priority should basically be making sure that nothing's coming through the middle, where he's pretty weak. I guess he does have a couple of squads of Motorcycle coming up to guard this road. And then just making this town and this tree line just impossible to attack. Because if you can defend this well, bring in a CV for Bravo, and then force your opponent to either attack across this big open field into your Bravo town, or attack across this big open field into Foxtrot, then you have, in order to stop the bleed, you have a huge advantage. And the fact that Baker has everything so far back to contest and is not contesting this all is a huge mistake of just map usage. And bringing in like an Mi-24V back here, this is a 100-point helicopter. Like, I know you have Gornoshoki 90 on the deck, and they're like 60 points. So like save another 20 points, get 2 Gornoshoki 90 into this town. Then save another 120 points to get 2 into here. And this becomes so hard to take. Baker's first personages have been a paladin and the attackums, which he is firing into this woods. And there is, there are targets in there. His attackums, I think, killed some BTRs. But this is 150, 120, 270 points when you basically have nothing on your left flank. And it's completely uncontested. So artillery is good, and it can be super useful. But artillery is for breaking stalemates when positions have become static or supporting already large ground attacks. So if you don't have like a whole flank of your front covered, or you don't have an assault force built up, and you don't really have, like, Baker can only see these airplanes right now, and it's sort of guessing that enemy units are there. You don't have recon. This nearly 300 points would be better spent on recon, like frontline units. So Sean has brought in his 2 Su-25s. I think they are ground attacking with their rockets sort of randomly into the town, which is also not the way you want to use these planes. Su-25s are direct ground attack planes, so you can fire position with them because they have rockets, but those rockets are more for using on like infantry squads or light vehicles that are visible to you. The rockets are, even though the 30% accuracy doesn't make it seem that way, they're actually pretty accurate. So if you look, there's like a nice line of where they got shot. They're not like bombs where you want to dumbfire them in. And then the missiles that they have can only target units that are visible, that they can see, and they're for taking out heavy tanks. So using them in this way is not effective. Like, the most you did was panic an LAV. Didn't even damage it. Just, they went, oh shit, there's airplanes. And one of these Su-25s nearly died. Also, additionally, I guess you did kill, because there was a SHAP here. Yeah, so you did end up killing a SHAP somehow. One of them used their missiles. But, like, that's such a dangerous use of these that it's not worthwhile. Additionally, if you've spent the money on your helicopters, you should use them, particularly the Super Cobra. The Super Cobra because it has the seed missiles, it has great poke ability. Like, and also sort of great sneaky recon ability, because what you can do, most often planes with seed, or vehicles with seed missiles, so planes and helicopters, can see a radar unit before they are in range to shoot at it. So you should be using your Super Cobra to fly along the front line and see if you can spot these Tunguskas. Because then even if you don't feel confident moving up to shoot at them with the seed missiles themselves, because you're afraid of like infantry man pads or non-radar AA in the area, you can then still use it to spot with your artillery on the target. Additionally, one of the powers why the Tunguska is so good is their gun is radar guided, but their missiles are not. And you can turn off individual weapons by clicking on the weapon in the HUD down when you have the unit popped up. So one of the things you can do with Tunguskas, which makes them so useful, is you can turn off their guns, keep their missile on, which is still a very good missile, and let them and only turn on the gun when you need to. Yeah, this BRDM moved forward into range, immediately got hit by infantry in this town. Sean has also brought in Akatsia, which is a cheaper artillery. Cheap artillery, the super cheap artillery is fine for bombarding an area in like a concentrated way. So constantly, like just laying down shells repeatedly. But it's not accurate, and they have a very slow aim time. I think it's like 30 seconds. Modern artillery, like the Paladin, its aim time is much more accurate, and his aim time is only 10 seconds. You sort of just have to know. It's generally the 100-point plus artillery has the modern fire control that allows it to shoot quicker. And so they can react to targets of opportunity much better. So having this sort of cheap, the middle artillery, which is like not the 55.1 ones, and not the like 100 plus ones, but in the like 70 to 90 range, is not worthwhile because you're sort of getting, you're not accurate, you're not getting that modern fire control system, but they're also not as cheap as possible for just laying down shells. Well, this is technically, if this worked out a good trade, this MiG-29 is coming in and bombing the longbow. This is pretty. The longbow is more points than the MiG-29. In this case, you'd be better direct attacking the longbow with the IR missiles and the gun, just in terms of trying to kill it. But this is still a pretty dangerous way to kill a longbow. It'd be better to just wait for it to maybe stray in range of your Tunguska. Additionally, bombs, they can affect helicopters that are low to the ground, like if you drop bombs on the Super Cobra or a sneaky cluster rocket or something, it would be toast. But when they're high up, like the longbow, I don't think it damages them. And also, Baker sees this coming, and he's able to react. And because the longbow is fast and the bombs aren't quite on target, he's just able to fly away. Baker's brought a Patriot over to Bravo to complement his other Patriot, so deep AA, deep flying planes will be in trouble because they'll be targeting, like any plane coming up Alpha Way will be getting targeted by 2 Patriots, which is really bad. And he's finally bringing up some infantry for Foxtrot. At this point, Sean should still be focusing on reinforcing Foxtrot rather than buying 300 points worth of helicopters, or 200 points into reinforcing Foxtrot and getting a CV for Bravo and forcing Baker to attack him by getting a points tick. Because you can neutralize points, and then the point of this is to win the game. The point of this game mode is to control zones, and then by controlling zones, you hopefully get a points tick, and then you can win the game. And killing units is valuable, but it's not the way, especially when you have a foothold in a territory and it doesn't seem like it's getting heavily pressured. You should just get a CV for it. Baker is building up a force to advance into Foxtrot, has some more infantry. These 3 are their Delta Force, and then there's light riflemen in this, along with the Recon Bradley, some more Abrams, a longbow. Alright, the MiG-31, this is knowing your planes. If you look at a plane's missiles, you can tell what they target by seeing what their range is. So this missile can't target helicopters. So my thought is that this MiG-31 is coming in to attack the longbow directly, but it doesn't have any weapons that can be used against it. The power of the MiG-31, specifically, because its range against airplanes on its missiles is like nearly 13 kilometers, is to have it circling back over like your base, and when a enemy airplane comes in, it's immediately getting shot at by your MiG-31. And for like 195 seconds, it's much riskier for your opponent to use airplanes. They probably won't even call it in. Additionally, planes, every unit has sort of a hidden stat other than airplanes of air detection, which is how well they see airplanes as opposed to ground units. And ground units, regular ground units, can't see airplanes that well. It's sort of like they'll see the bomber flying over them after the bombs have dropped. AA units have varying air detections, and it's based on their range, and they can see, farther. They can see maybe the bomber as it's coming in before it's dropped. Airplanes, particularly like ASF fighters with exceptional air detection, can see airplanes on like the whole map. They can see an airplane when it gets spawned in from the air spawn. So the other advantage of having something like a MiG-31 is sort of as a spotter plane, where you have it circling over your base, occasionally chucking missiles. But you also see when some other plane comes in, and you can bring in other air superiority fighters in to intercept it if you think it's a threat. But using it in this way is not. It's just gonna fly over and get shot at by the Patriot. And I don't remember if it. Oh, it does get away. These Mi-24Vs, like, they charge forward. First off, they're in a big stack, so the DAP shoots one missile at them and does 15 damage. They do manage to kill this longbow, but they're getting pretty badly damaged by just overflying machine guns. And this is like helicopters don't do well when they're right on top of things. They sort of get stunned and messed up. And this is like a major. It's like 300 points traded for like 210, and you probably could have gotten the same effect by just charging one forward and shooting down the DAP and the Apache. And again, the Super Cobra, you bought it at the start of the game, and it's just sitting here in the town, chilling out, when it could be poking, particularly with the seed missiles. Alright, another pair of the SU-25s are coming back in again. I think this time, Sean can't actually see targets. But there's better air defense now, particularly the Patriot. And again, they are ground attacking, so they're not really using their weapons effectively. And bringing in a 130-point airplane to kill like a 10-point truck is, you have to be like very sure that you have air superiority for that to be worthwhile. And then also, this artillery and these artillery pieces haven't moved at all, which means that it'd be very easy, particularly for the ATACMS. Baker spent all this game like blind firing the ATACMS into this woods, which, like, there's stuff in here, it got kills, but the power of the ATACMS is that it's incredibly accurate, even without spotting something over a huge range. So really, the ATACMS' biggest target right now should be this artillery piece, which isn't moving, and could very easily be destroyed. Because you can see where it's coming from. In game, you can sort of track back. You go, oh, here's the shell that's incoming. You can track back the arc, and then go, oh, look, there's this thing. Go to your pings, put an attack marker on it, go find your artillery, your ATACMS, and then target that area. This longbow is coming forward in support of this attack. It's spotted some vehicles, which it's going to pick off with its missiles. Unfortunately, the good thing about the longbow is it ripple fires hellfires, which is really effective at killing things. It is kind of a waste on like little transports, but it's still killing stuff. And then Baker starts to push forward. He's got his infantry. He's leading with his Delta Force on the Spetsnaz. So he has the Humvees for fire support. He's unloaded his infantry here. He also has some tanks in the area. But the Spetsnaz open up, and then immediately the Delta Force are still moving forward. but the tank and the Humvees are shooting at the Delta Force. They're getting stunned. They're getting killed. They barely hurt this Delta Force. There's one unlucky rocket gets off, which kills a bunch of them because they were all happen to be stacked up at that time. And there's also a Block 16 F-16 over here to counter any air coming in to stop this push, which because there's a fire position, these rockets don't hit anything, and the gun run, and the SU-25 is shot down by the Patriot and the F-16. So that was a very good push into this town. Cleared everything out, minimal casualties. Very good. I would like to see Baker pull these Delta Force back, bring in a supply truck, and heal them up, just because they're spec ops, they're very expensive infantry, so healing them is very valuable. And now that he's secured this town, his first priority should be command unit, command vehicle, like command infantry into the town would be ideal, so that he can start getting points. There's some poking and prodding around here, some movement. There's the Super Cobra doing some poking, shooting at this tank, which is ideal. What would be even better is we had the Super Cobra here, and then some other ATGM vehicle, and then this tank couldn't face both of them, and you could guarantee a side shot. This is a bomb. Oh, cluster bomb coming in. Aardvark, yeah, gets away from Tunguska. This is a decently smart place to bomb, just because you would expect light vehicles and stuff to be there, and it's unlucky to not hit anything with it. And again, bringing air superiority to protect your bombers is great. This KA-52 came forward and shot at the Super Cobra that was just chilling here, and it was very unlikely not to kill it. At this point, the Super Cobra, it's on 2 health, it's using missiles, it should go back to the FOB and land and rearm and repair. This is good from Sean of bringing in some reinforcements for this area, and also keeping his helicopters in reserve, so that if a force does come attacking across the open ground, you can sort of leap forward, hit, pull back. This is some more infantry coming in. This might be, I think this is a light rifleman. I don't know why this infantry squad is so far back. You can get into the town, it's safe. I'm not quite. Oh, it's showing this Bradley. It should just be moved. Just move it into the town, into the forest, somewhere where it's harder to see it, rather than sticking out in the open. Oh, it is being moved. Additionally, and all the stuff that Sean has been bringing up, really needs to bring up some sort of I can see it's bringing up a buck. Never mind. Yeah, but needs to bring up some sort of AA because this is uncovered. This attack him shot. Try and think. Let's see where it lands. So it's again just slightly off target. And because the attack is so accurate, there isn't like spread on the missile. So this is going to land in pretty much the same place. And it does happen to get those 2 transports, but it's not like you can cover a whole forest with cluster munitions. And there's some spotting here, so actually, so it's a pretty normal reaction to unload your infantry from their transports when they're under fire. But in the cases of our artillery, so when an infantry are in a transport and it dies, the amount of damage that the infantry take is sort of determined by how much overkill damage there was on the vehicle. And for artillery doesn't generally overkill vehicles that much. So it's actually generally better when you're getting shelled. It's sort of like you want to put them in the IFE or the APC. And if you think about the real world, the reason why IFEs and APCs, particularly APCs, exist for the most part is to provide an armored box for your infantry to move around in, but also hide in when there's like artillery shells. So here these Humvees are exposed. It's not a big deal, but they can be used. So it's good to try to. And two events is going to come up and wreck that helicopter probably. You're supposed to pay attention. Like this helicopter, it still has gun ammo, but it's used its rockets and its missiles. So this is not. It's not totally useless, but this is the point where you should pull it back and try to repair it. And there was definitely enough time for this to get away. Good job with the Raven coming in. Kills a buck. And then there's some cluster bombs, which kill those. And then some regular bombs targeting the town. I think it was directly targeting this infantry, which C just barely survives in the APC. And then even if the APC had been killed, probably most of the squad would have lived as well. But that was a good coordinated bombing run. Seed plane coming in, killing AA, targeting different areas, and with appropriate munitions, and having your air superiority protecting. So that was good. Good use of air power. So just charging Humvees forward, you can sort of do this because they are cheap, but even though they are cheap, they still are fire support. Like the damage from M2 groundings is meaningful, as you saw in this town attack. So, sort of charging them forward into the forest is not important. But this longbow moving forward is great. Kills this BTR-90 and the squad in it, kills a tank, and then also kills these two BMPs. But at this point, it's out of Hellfire, so you should definitely consider bringing this back to your fob and refilling it. Because these Hellfires are so good. And they're the real power of the longbow, is having them. This is another good coordinated air attack. Here, this is sort of bombing the forest. It's sort of expecting to be there. Having this cluster bombs here wasn't useful. This MiG-29 charging, I think it must have been ordered poorly.
Mic off. Mic on.
Because it should have been shooting missiles at airplanes as soon as it spawned in. And once it got into close range, the F-16 is more maneuverable and has just more missiles because it can fire the AMRAAMs and the AIM-9s at the same time, and it was able to shoot it down. So Sean can definitely use, if you're going to keep using the MiG-31, which it is a cool unit, it's very unique, there's only 3 units like it, 2 of them are on the Soviet air tab. You sort of have to use it cautiously, sort of like air-to-air artillery, and / like airborne early warning. Additionally, you're bringing lots of Motostrelki, but your deck, in particular, the Gornostrelki 90 on your deck, have longer range ATGMs, which are great for defending towns. Because they can fend off these like vehicles from a longer range. So you might want to look at your deck and think about either just using those more, or replacing maybe like one of your rifle infantry cards with ATGMs possibly to just control open areas. Baker, obviously, you need to move your tank up for sure. This helicopter, it starts shooting and then you're charging it forward. So this helicopter, its missiles have a range of 2,800 meters. They actually outrange the PVATs because it's a high-end helicopter and a not great AA. But I don't know what order you gave it on, but you're charging it forward, which is the worst thing to do with helicopters. Because they lose accuracy and then they get in range of AA and they get shot down. Because helicopters, even big expensive ones with front armor and stuff, are very fragile. So helicopters really should move mostly should move laterally and occasionally poke forward. This charge forward way is a guaranteed way to get them killed. Because even if they just overfly, these infantry and get within range of the machine guns and rifles, they're toast. The helicopter will get shot down really quickly. And that's what happens here. It stops forward, kills a few stuff, and then it's stopped. This Ka-52 has not been fully rearmed, so the seed does come in and does kill those VVADs. But again, it's charging forward, and this SU-27 does kill, I think, one dumb bomb, iron bomb, and gets away because it's good. Yeah, and that Ka-52 is killed by the longbow, mostly because it also was getting shot at by ground fire. Does good use of the Hornet, spotting it, heavy tank, pulling it in, killing it, getting it. You can occasionally use fire position with dumbfire rockets, but this is open field. You'll be able to see anything. You really want to fire position near the tree lines, or just wait to spot something, and then the rockets will eat them alive. Just get another fire position on this, and it's getting hit by a Patriot, so it doesn't kill anything, and it's not that it gets shot down. Both these helicopters are stunned. They've been doing gun to gun. The longbow tends to have just a more accurate gun, which is a major advantage of it in those like gun duels. But those are pretty rare usually. And then, yeah, not that much has been happening on this flank. A lot of attention has been focused on here. This is where Baker really needed more infantry, like cheap infantry, which he didn't have on his deck, but that has changed. Again, this is another like helicopter charging forward. Even if this Tunguska wasn't here, because this only has 2 hit points, like the machine guns of this tanks are able to kill this before the AA gets there. Helicopters really, their advantage is mobility and range. If you get them over stuff, even non-AA stuff, they will not be effective. And good helicopters are really expensive, so just charging them forward is a huge waste. Same thing, like this longbow has been very effective, but it's on 1 hit point. It's like out of ammo. If you figure out like, if you had a full fob, because a lot of the fob has been used up almost entirely on artillery, which has not been super effective because a lot of it has just been shelling. And you refill this, it's like getting a free longbow, which is huge. Longbow is 150 points. This is a good position for the light riflemen. They're preventing, they're making it hard to reinforce this town just by controlling this open space with their missile. This tank should be moved up as well. And you probably need more AA. Because, yeah, this helicopter comes forward and drives the light rifleman off. And yeah, there's more AA coming. So this is a decent use of fire position. You know there's infantry in here. So, and you can't see it. You are just firing rockets in here, which is stunning and doing some damage. But also what would be best is to have your infantry move forward after this. And also now that the riflemen have revealed themselves, you're out of rockets when you could have just fired the rockets and they would have, when they're in the open, and it would have killed them incredibly quickly. I think there's just been some shelling that has killed, or no, the Rangers went forward and got killed. So some reinforcements here. Reinforcements here. Yeah, here Baker is like bottoming out his infantry supply. And like he doesn't have good basic infantry to do a cross field assault, so he's bringing in like small squads, which is not ideal. But he does have command in Foxtrot, so he's been getting a ticking points lead. Which is the key part here. Now the way that Sean could stop this is either kill his command, which would be pretty difficult, or get his own command for Bravo. And then it would be even again. But at this point, because Baker has had the tick long enough between starting with a command, extra command over Sean, and then this neutralizing Foxtrot, Sean is now the one who needs to get forward and attack. This is a good use of a Hornet. Kill this. Unfortunately, the Augusta does shoot it down. Really needed to have the seed plane alongside it. Though that was also pretty unlucky. I think it's definitely more, particularly on that angle where the Augusta can't see the Hornet for a long time because of the forest. It should have probably gotten away with some damage. Yeah, so this is when, yeah, the Hornet, you should have waited on the Hornet for this whole train of stuff to come in. And then those bombs are coming in on the forest, and the cluster bombs are coming in on the town. Cluster bombs don't hurt infantry, they just make them mildly annoyed. Does kill a vehicle back here. But cluster bombs should be on the forest, and the regular bombs should be on the town. Yeah, pushing forward. The riflemen are charging across. There's some fire support from this tank, but there's also fire support from Sean's tanks in the behind the town, which is ultimately going to win, especially when there's a superior force of infantry in the town, and there just isn't enough weight of fire support. It's just one tank, and even with the super covers coming in with their guns, which do a fair amount of damage, there's still just a huge advantage in firepower to the defenders, which is why you need a very superior fire support. I don't know why these small were dropped off over here. Alright, bringing in SC-27PU to shoot at these helicopters. This is foolish. This is a 180-point plane. It doesn't even damage them. and it gets shot at by a whole bunch of stuff. You're risking Patriot shots, the Pivot's got shots on it. That thing could have definitely been killed. What's better is to have a AA piece, like your Tunguska come up. This Patriot also could probably be moved up a little bit. Like, you know, you're pretty sure that this forest would be safe, right? So you can move it up a little bit, and it gives you more chances to shoot at airplanes from further away. And obviously, you don't want your AA being shot at by like ground vehicles, especially expensive things like Patriots. But you can move them up because it gives you more opportunity to shoot at airplanes. And like, if your A was further forward, you could maybe hit this bomber before it drops the bombs, rather than afterwards. And then it's stunned. Maybe it overflies your lines, and your AA gets a chance to kill it, or it gets evac'd because there's AA coming at it. Like, it really helps stop bombing runs from before they happen when you have the really long range AA like the Patriot. It's another big combined bombing run. Again, mixing cluster and standard for forest and stuff is fine. You probably would want to put them over the same target area, just so in case there's infantry or vehicles, you get both. But again, the cluster munitions on the town doesn't harm them, and they're not even worried about it. This is a decent little helicopter raid, except you do. This is another like charge, but it's just enough weight of helicopters to shoot down, stop this push, and shoot them down. But at this point, really need to and pull them back. And that was still like a really like if the PVADs was in instead of over here was in this forest. This all would have gotten shot down. This infantry moving over from this town was a good flank into this forest was a good flank. It should have happened much earlier. Because this forest never had any infantry in it. So these two small squads could easily kill, or these two rifleman squads could easily kill this tank. Other side. There's been enough fire support and stuff to push across this town, but there's been reinforcements. So now it's like town fighting, and really there needs to be another wave of infantry to follow up these light riflemen, and probably more fire support, because like the M1 Abrams and like that, but it's not good enough. Well, there's some good artillery on the town. K-52 should just shoot some missile, a single over at this guy. And this AA needs to be further forward to prevent these helicopters from shooting. Yeah, so the shaft can be shooting. Sort of another charge forward helicopter, which is not great. Over here the Rangers took this town. Blind men groping in the dark for each other. Fire computer reset is the worst crit that can happen. One of the worst crits that can happen on a tank, because what it does is it makes the accuracy of your main gun 5%. So the use of a Hornet coming in. These are cluster bombs, so they're not really going to be effective against infantry. They're not going to be effective against infantry in this town. Just panics them, and does hurt this BTR-80 a bit, but it was grazed. Yeah, showing this position where you know there to be some bad guys is good. And bringing over the helicopters, Chaparral is further forward now, so. But yeah, it's definitely another like charge. Feels like going right into and it's immediately killed. I think there was something messed up with like the fire position for this, so but you are paying attention, so you do evac it out, which is good. I think this Hornet lost line of sight as well, so this should also be evac'd out. Yeah, instead of bringing a supply truck forward to refill your artillery, just bring it back to the fob. It's got wheels. This is like, 20 points you don't have to spend. And, like, finagling. The small, because they're moving, are not using their real firepower. So they really need to, like, attack. I think fire support teams are much better on the defense, where they can just sit in the building and use their fire support weapons, as opposed to the attack, where they are in the open and have to stop. So yeah, that was a good game. And, of Conquest, there's definitely things both of you did well, and then also things both of you need to work on. So I hope you learned something, and I'll see you around. Yeah.